Hey, good morning from Bali. Good evening to everybody over in America, and it's very late night now, I think, in Europe. So today I am doing my monthly Q&A, and this month's theme has been decided by you, and the theme is My Life Outside BDSM. So this is my 22nd monthly Q&A. Let me just write the theme here. And these Q&As come with a theme each time. And you are deciding them, and you are also giving me the questions. So if you want to add a question, you have to add it using the question feature. You'll see a little box at the bottom with a Q in it. So do that there. But I do already have a lot of questions from my members, as well as from you here on Instagram. So, my life outside BDSM. I wonder, can I pin that? Look at that. Look at me go. There's a question mark in that little box thing. So, I'm going to start going through the questions that all of you asked me. There are many wonderful questions. Okay, so let's go here. So, do I have personal romantic relationships? Yes, I do. And actually, for me, one would think that BDSM might be separated for other people, but for me, actually, this ends up being a kink question anyway, because even to those who are not necessarily in the community, I tend to end up in female-led relationships with them. And you can see last month's Q&A where I go into quite a lot of detail about how I see female-led relationships as well as how I run them. So I do have personal romantic relationships, but it doesn't escape my personality at this stage. Thank you for that question, Mistress Bond. Let's see. This is also an adjacent to BDSM question, so maybe we'll open with these. Would people be able to guess your kinks when they see the vanilla you? So my main kink is probably the power dynamic in and of itself, which means that I like to be in a position of power, of authority, the disciplinarian. And would people be able to guess that when they see me in a vanilla context? You tell me, does it come across? I have the feeling that it does come across, especially if I have somebody who I'm in a personal relationship with near me. It's probably very obvious that I am into that dynamic, and that is how I navigate the world. But if people understand that's a kink, probably some people. But aside from that, I mean, there are things that are going to be harder to communicate, right? So whether it's my love of heavy bondage or encasement of people, I think that one is harder to guess. And I mean, you could probably signal these things by getting the people you're with or yourself wearing certain things that might hint to bondage, but no, I think that is less obvious to see. So thank you for that question. Let's see. What is your vanilla crush like? So my vanilla crushes, so the last time that I met somebody outside of the kink community and I had a crush on them, it was somebody who had never, to my knowledge, played within the community at all. And what are they like? They are very quick-witted, very intriguing to me. We were able, the first time we met, we were able to speak for, it was like 9 hours. Yeah, and we had only maybe met a few minutes the time before that. And so I guess the people who I usually end up having crushes on outside of the community and inside are generally what I deem to be captivating to me, and they can kind of hold my attention and challenge my intellect very thoroughly. So yeah, so people who capture me that way. And in terms of what people look like, there is no theme. I think it's more for me the format of the connection of the mind. Let's see. Have you ever thought about shifting careers? And if you did, what did you want to become? So I've actually done a lot of different things over the years. When I first started out, in the professional sense, I was a performance artist for a circus. And after that, I moved into production for events, for advertising, and all these different commercial things. And I opened a sustainable design company. I worked with the UN for a while. I've done a lot of different things throughout my life. And so I haven't thought about shifting from dominatrix focused or kink focused things, because it has been so satisfying for the last 10 years now. And I have a lot of other interests that I give my attention to, but this is definitely the thing that is most exciting for me on an ongoing basis, and I don't see myself shifting away from it too drastically soon. Let's see. Okay. How about your boyfriend? That's an assumption that I have a boyfriend. And family. Do they know about my profession? Yes. It took me some time to open up to my family, about 6 or 7 years. But eventually I did, and it was eventually well received. So I'm lucky for that, because it can often go another way. In terms of my partner, yeah, I tend to open with my historical sex work, which was escorting, and also my current, which is the dominatrix work. And I tend to lead with that because it can be quite defining to myself, but also there's a lot of people who would not be okay with that. And so I would obviously much rather be with somebody who can comprehend it, or at least be open to comprehending it. So yes, everybody close to me knows now. It's much simpler for me personally. Let's see. Oh, what is your favorite ice cream flavor? I like this question. My favorite ice cream flavor is, it depends on the day, but I would say that of all time, it's actually pretty basic. I really love chocolate chip cookie dough ice cream. I'm a texture person, so the first time that I managed to find such a diversity of texture inside the ice cream, it really did it for me. And I'm still very much, my eyes light up when I see that in the fridge. Let's see. Oh, this is cute. Do I like denim? Yes, I like denim, but it's not a love. I only have 2 pieces in my wardrobe that are denim. So if you have a denim fetish, then maybe it's somebody else's. Somebody else is more appropriate for that. But that was a random question, and I quite enjoyed seeing that pop up there. Okay. Let's see. This is very poorly worded. Did you see me in Edgware Road? Edgware Road spelled incorrectly. No, I haven't been in London for a long time now. I was supposed to be there 4 months ago, and I was on my way, but on a stopover in Singapore airport, I decided to turn back because of everything that is and was happening at the time. So no, that was not me that you saw on Edgware Road. Let's see. Mistress Eva, why have you chosen to live and base your life in the locations you have? So I used to live in London, and I moved there for love, for a person, and to be closer to them and to get to know them better. And I did, and then I moved away. So that was a good learning experience. But why do I tend to move around? In my adult life, I moved to China, to Spain, to Malaysia, to Australia. I have moved because partially some of them are home, and partially some of them are very exciting, and they are very, well, they were exciting to me, and they are driven by professional reasons. And so I think I am maybe, and now I'm in Bali, and this is quite a different reasoning. I think maybe my younger self was very intrigued by spaces and how they influenced my ability to achieve things or to explore facets of life that were deemed exciting to me. So whether that was joining that circus in Spain, or whether that was touring around China as a performer, or doing production jobs in China as well, it was a very, enlivening time. And so I would say that probably used to be my previous motivation. Sydney, I would consider a home. I partially grew up there, and so I moved there for a sense of comfort. And I think as I've gotten older, I probably moved closer to that sense of comfort also, which is very much my decision to live in Bali now, because I'm very comfortable in the tropics. In the heat, it makes me much more comfortable within my body, and I really enjoy the pace, being quite removed from a lot of the speed that the world can have, and also being removed from a sense from my kink family. So I'm starting to really miss them, because I used to see them every 2 weeks, once a month at least, and they're mostly in New York. But yeah, and so it's kind of backfiring a little bit right now. The sense of distance that I wanted to have, because I do need a lot of time alone by living in Bali, is I need to start finding a kink family here. So yeah, there's a lot of different motivations, and I think they've definitely shifted over time. This is interesting. Any mental problems? This Paul says. I would say mental issues is probably a better way to go about asking that of somebody. No, nothing that has been, how do you say, nothing that has been ever diagnosed, and nothing that I have ever had to really deeply battle with. I think I've probably had a moment with depression here and there, and but it was nothing particularly chronic. Yeah. And I've always been very lucky, maybe, to have access to people who also can help talk me through different scenarios, and so maybe that has also saved me, as well as the support system that I had growing up, as well as obviously my genetic structure. So no, none that I am aware of, although of course we face challenges like everyone. I have new questions coming in. Thank you for that. There's a lot to get through, so if I don't get to them, maybe this will be in part 2. So, do I have any other jobs? I don't technically have any other jobs. I own a few other companies, and I poke my head in to check in on them every now and then. Nowadays, more often, since I'm so grounded in one place. But no, so I guess technically I haven't had another job that I focus so much of my time, attention, and effort on, like I do with the things in the kink world, because it's not as interesting for me anymore. Yeah, I used to do a lot of different things at once, but not really anymore. This is an interesting question from Mistress Bond. What is something you prefer to do yourself rather than have a sub do it for you? So it's a common issue that a lot of mistresses end up coming up against and conversing over. And some of them really love to end up actually doing a lot of things themselves because their standards are higher than they're able to find subs for. Over time, I've realized that it's very much the casting. So whether you can find the appropriate sub with the appropriate attention to detail and or a level of skill, and that of course is not easy. And I haven't found anybody ever who has been up to my level of cleanliness. I do not want to do it myself, and so I get the subs close to me to pay for professionals to do that. So I tend to do that quite a bit too. Also, I do not like the driving skills of a lot of the subs that I have, and so I get them to pay for a driver also. So things that maybe you see are commonly utilized in the community or within relationships, seemingly I don't necessarily do. I get people to pay for it. And also, one thing that I don't think I will ever allow anybody to do is to touch my teaware. So if you've been watching, you're aware that I collect teaware and tea, and I'm interested very much in tea culture. And I do not think I will ever allow anybody to pour me a tea ceremony. Unless, obviously, they come from a background in it. Then okay. But teaching somebody to maneuver my very expensive teaware and to pour me in a way that I find acceptable is not, nah, yeah. Yeah, I've tried to send some of my subs to lessons, but you have to have a sense of finesse that I guess unfortunately mine don't necessarily have. Which is your favorite place to recharge? So that would be Bali, my home, definitely. And I think that's only going to get better with the build of my newer home, where I have a lot of spaces planned for my relaxation. And yeah, that's definitely my number one place. I have this ryokan, this Japanese inn that I really love, also outside of Tokyo, that also really does it for me. But I would say number one is definitely my home. Yeah. What is your favorite thing to do to recharge? Not see anybody and sleep. Yeah, I haven't had to do that so much lately, I guess because I'm not traveling as much anymore. But I think that would be at the top of my list. I don't know whether I would even say it's a favorite. It's a thing that really works. In terms of favorite, maybe eating something really beautiful, which I'm also doing a lot of these days. Yeah. Let's see. Do you have a partner or relationships separate from work or BDSM? Yeah? If so, does it affect your relationship with BDSM or work in this case? Maggie is asking. So for me, my lines between work and personal life are much more blurry than maybe there are for some other people. For me, I actually use it as a way to bring people into my personal life. It's yeah, and I'm very clear with my the copy that I write and everything, and also how I establish the relationships. That it is going to go down a more personal path rather than a clearly defined professional path. This is just where I'm at in my development, and I'm not very good at short stints anymore, whether it's a session here and a session there. That doesn't really suit where my head is at anymore. And so actually everything is really intermingled. So yeah. Do I have a partner or relationship separate from kink? No, because that is my preference, and also my personal personality and what it calls for. And so I'm much more intermingled than having those clear definitions that I know work for other people. Yeah. What's retiring like for a lifestyle dominatrix? Or what's retirement like? Yeah, I always say I'm semi-retired because I guess I do have that personal mix that I just mentioned, what is it like for? It's going to be different for everybody. For me, I will always have my different investments. For me, I will always probably have some sort of kink little project going on because I really enjoy it. It gives me a lot of joy. And so, what is retiring like for me in particular? It's moving to Bali, having a jungle house, having a less jungly house, building a facility for my personal enjoyment to lock up my loves in, and yeah, and just usually traveling around the world to see the people that I love, and taking it as easy as possible while still entertaining my mind. That's kind of how my semi-retirement is going, usually, although that's slightly on off hold at the moment. How often do you normally spend time in Australia? Usually I go back at least twice a year. Sydney most of the time, sometimes the West Coast. I love Margaret River. I also really love Mullumbimby, which is East Coast. But yeah, usually twice a year, although clearly at this stage, that's not going to be happening for the next year or two until we find a vaccine, right? So, sorry. This is cute. Lots of things in one question. Hobbies. I would say that all these little projects that you see me running are my hobbies. I definitely have things that make a lot more money and do a lot better monetarily, financially, professional for me that are outside of BDSM. So I guess this would be my smallest scale endeavor, and it's very amusing. And so I would consider everything that you see here on Instagram and on the internet my hobby. I don't really have anything aside from that. I really enjoy it, and I tend to make the things that I really enjoy into very developed looking things. And so even though it's my hobby, you might not assume so. Favorite film and music genres. Favorite films. I'm not really sure what to call my favorite film genre. Usually on planes, for some reason, I watch a lot of really bad comedy. I don't know why, but it's like it's where I always watch my really shitty comedy. Yeah, and like hangover level stuff. But usually when I'm not flying, I refuse to watch that kind of thing. And so, what are some movies that I've really enjoyed? I've been through different phases in my life. There was a point in life where I really loved things like Requiem for a Dream and The Fountain, and then which was quite challenging in a way. Lately, what have I been more drawn to? I've been watching more, because of Netflix, more series stuff, and it's really all over the place actually. Netflix has definitely opened up my boundaries a lot around things. So I guess I used to be really into heavy narrative and very like maybe metaphysical properties to the narrative, but nowadays I'm much more open. Musically, it's also changed a lot over time. I still have a soft spot in my heart for maybe more traditional techno. I used to throw techno parties a long time ago, 20 years ago. Yeah, something like this. But since then, it's really evolved, and nowadays I listen to a lot more things like Nils Fram, and maybe you would say like experimental classical. Yeah, so that's kind of where my head is at this point in time. But I also have my days where I only want to hear really light hip-hop inspired like female vocal. It's all over the place. Beach or mountain. It used to be beach, heavily. It used to be beach, but now it's definitely the green, the cool air that you can smell off of the trees. It's definitely mountain now. But I mentioned Mullumbimby because it's an incredible place that can kind of combines the two, and I really love it for that. I'll always get a house up on the mountain, on the hill that looks out onto the ocean, and that's my ideal state for sure. And I think my next house will definitely be somewhere like that. Mm. Yes, that was a nice all-encompassing question. So I think I'll just do a couple too. Oh, but there's so many lovely questions. Maybe I'll answer them in story form. So let's see. Oh, I'm gonna have to choose a couple of very good ones. Let's see. Ooh, I'm not sure which to choose. They're so good. So these are questions about my life outside BDSM. This one's quite cute. Do you like going to, or have you been to EDM or rave festivals? So I would say about 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I used to go to raves. But I'm not so interested in them in particular anymore. I'm interested, I go to Burning Man, so things like that are more, maybe they have a lot of different things going on. I'm more inclined to go to that. But I used to date somebody who was a pop musician, and I spent about 2 years traveling to EDM, or at least electronic pop festivals every week. We'd be at maybe at least one a week. And so I really think I've maxed out. So I don't think I can go back to a festival that's purely about electronic dance music or pop electronic music again. So yeah, but that was a cute left of field question. Oh my goodness. Okay, all right, so many lovely questions. This is nice. Do you have any passions that may be surprising to other people who know you? To people who know me, I don't think that they would be surprised. To people who don't know me very well, they might be. I funnel a lot of money into charities to do with women's education, as well as animal welfare and some sustainability projects. So I am interested in all of these things, and I've actually worked in all of them before. Yeah, and maybe they would be surprised to learn at the different. I used to volunteer at a lot of refugee organizations. I also used to work in some. So I guess, people who approach me from a dominatrix perspective, when they hear about my professional past, I think it can be quite absurd for them. They don't necessarily see somebody who used to work at the UN choosing to do the things that I choose to do now. And that's a problem of society in general. Yeah. So I guess that a lot of the things that really motivate my value set and the way that I like to interact with the world would be surprising to people who only saw my photos. But if you start to dig even a little bit, I think it becomes very clear that I like to think about a world wider than kink and my own perspective. So yeah, that maybe is surprising for people who don't know me. But once you do know me, which are very few people actually, then yeah, you get a pretty clear understanding. Yeah, this is cute. Would you go on a date with a younger admirer? Asking for a friend. I have dated somebody 10 years younger than me before, and that was the youngest, and that was the biggest age gap. Would I do it again? Yeah. And I guess as I get older, would that gap widen? I'm definitely open to it. Yeah. All right, so let's just do, oh my goodness. One or more. Oh, this is cute. When Mistress interacts with men in general, outside of BDSM, do you still consider them as inferior? So that is the assumption that I assume that men are inferior in general. And if you've watched my last well, Q&As, you may have gathered that I don't necessarily believe that men are inferior. I'm not a female supremacist in the traditional sense. And so I don't have that perception of men in general. I think when it comes, however, I do have a bias in that I will be more open with women or women identifying people, and I might be more, my barriers might be lowered a bit. And I guess that just speaks to the nature of my past experience and the ways that maybe I've been scarred. But I definitely make people work. So I don't really allow so many people into my heart anymore, or into my inner circle of who I consider to be close to me. It takes a lot of work to get into that area. And so I don't know if I would use the word inferior, but I'm not open to people feeling that they can be close to me. So maybe that's a way that really comes across in general, outside when I'm interacting with the world. People really have to jump through hoops at this stage, or have achieved things that I really respect. But even then, it's still some hoop jumping. That's just where I am at right now. So yeah. So if you want to ask any more questions, please do so in the little question box down the bottom. But this is probably going to be my last question. Whew. Let's see. Let's have another question from another mistress, shall we? So many wonderful questions. Thank you so much. All right, so let's do this question by Pretty Epitome. And Pretty Epitome asks, favorite guilty pleasure food or junk food? Guilty pleasure. I don't have guilty pleasures. They're all pleasures. I guess the guilty pleasure would be the really bad comedies on planes that I mentioned earlier. My favorite junk food. There's this restaurant called Sujin in Bali, and they do this plant-based sandwich that I can only eat half, and then I have to drink a few cocktails, and then I can eat the other half. That's amazing. But it really feels like the closest to junk food that I've eaten in a long time. It's so heavy and oily, and I feel a little bit sick. So to me, that's what junk food represents. So I would say that's probably the closest thing I've eaten to junk food lately, and I really enjoyed. But in terms of traditional junk food, I don't eat meat anymore. But I used to really love the batter from KFC. If I could just buy the batter from KFC, I would probably do that. I've always wondered why they don't do that. So yeah. So thank you so much for your wonderful questions as always. And there are so many more. And I think I'll maybe try to answer them using my stories. But I think that's enough for a video. Thank you so much for joining me. I always love the themes that you suggest, and I adore the questions that you and my members especially ask. And it's very joyful for me. It indulges my hobby, as now all of you who have been watching understand. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to end you on Instagram.